You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers about hikers for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hey guys, it's me, Mighty Blue, and you are at last listening to the latest episode of Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis, and this is episode number 478. Well, I'm starting with an apology. I've had so many issues this week, not least technology and Wi-Fi issues, but one or two personal ones that also needed some attention. And this led me to delaying the publication of our latest episode. Anyway, we're here now, and I think I've got a really interesting show for you this week. Now, our interview this week is with a German lady, Annika Ananias. If that name sounds familiar to you, you may have read her story in the Trek recently. She's the one who came to our country just over a month ago, holding a 10-year visa with an American boyfriend to hike the Arizona Trail. She'd already hiked the PCT and the CDT in recent years, yet she was denied entry into the US, had her 10-year visa revoked, and was summarily deported after spending a day and a night in a bare cell, and is now banned from re-entering the US for 5 years. The Trek covered this story meticulously, getting all the documentation that Annika had, and I was intrigued by both her and her story, so I wanted to offer her the chance to tell it in her own words. As many of you know, politics is a subject I steer well clear of in the podcast, but it's difficult to hear this story without thinking that something is going very wrong with our country's immigration system when we're denying entry in such a fashion to people who may appear outside the norm in that they're staying for a long time, hiking long trails and not trying to work over here. Annika and I are careful to avoid it being political, and I hope you listen to her conversation with an open mind. If you have comments about this, I would love to hear them from you. Steve@hikingradionetwork.com. And if anybody can offer a rationale for this, well, please reach out as well. I'd be delighted to give you a platform on the show. Also today, in our Mighty Blue Class of 2025, we catch up with both Dave, who is nearly 300 miles in, and Beth, who is about 2 days in at the time of recording. The good news is that they're both still going and heading north. We're no longer having a book reading, so let's get on and hear from Annika Ananias, or Ravenclaw. Today we've got a lady from Germany on the podcast. This is Annika Ananias. Is that correct?
Annika Ananias, yeah, it's a little complicated.
Or Ravenclaw. Hey, Annika, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
And by the way, I should say to particularly my listeners, actually, at the outset, that this podcast, while we never engage in politics, because we never do that while we're out hiking, it's going to touch on something that's going on at the moment in this country, in the US. So beware that you may hear some things that you don't like in this conversation, right? Mm-hmm. Warning over. Now, Annika, I know that you've already hiked the PCT in 2022 and then the CDT, I think in 2024, was it last year you did the CDT?
Correct.
What was it that brought you to America in the first place to do those long trails?
I fell in love with through hiking in New Zealand on the Aurora, which I did in 2018, 2019. And it was supposed to be like one last big adventure before I maybe settled down or whatever. But surprise, that didn't happen. I kind of caught the through hiking fever. So I was like, okay, what's next, right? And a lot of people were talking about the PCT that I've met on the TA in New Zealand. There are some Americans. And I was like, yeah, that sounds good. So let's go. To the USA, also because North America was the last continent on my list to visit.
All right.
So it's really, that sounds great. So I hiked the PCT in 2022. I met my American partner on that hike. We met like 500 miles in Tehachapi, and we're still together. And because of that, it was just like natural to also do our next hike together,
Sure,
also in
sure.
the USA. And of course, I mean, the through hiking culture in the USA is great. I fell in love with the landscape and also, just the culture, the through hiking culture there.
Right.
So, and as my partner is American, I had a B2 visa that is valid for 10 years. So why not, right? So
Right, sure. So that's about. I want to get to that in a minute. But how are you actually able to take time out of your life to have these adventures? Because PCT is a long adventure, the CDT is probably even longer adventure, and the Appalachian Trail is as well, even though you haven't done that one yet. So how are you able to take that time out?
I'm a freelance graphic designer in Germany. So I am more flexible with my schedule than having a corporate job.
You didn't take a computer with you, did you, to work on the trail?
No,
Right.
no.
Possible, isn't it? It's possible. So
No.
let's start with the PCT then, because at that time you hadn't met your boyfriend. Obviously, you met him on the PCT. What sort of process does a European have to go through to get to the US to do this hike, or what was it like back in 2022?
So there is a possibility of an ESTA, but that allows you to only stay 3 months. That is the most uncomplicated thing to do. But the CCT as a PCT takes 5 to 6 months. So it's pretty clear that you need a visa, a tourist visa. It's called a B2 tourist visa. And you have to go to a long application online where they ask all sorts of questions, and then you pay a fee, and then you go to the embassy. For me, it was in Munich, where you have a personal interview where they ask you some more questions, and then you hopefully get a approved visa that's just valid for 10 years for up to 6 months per stay.
Which used to be the way it used to be that in the past. Maybe 9/11 changed things, I don't know. So I used to travel to America regularly on business, and I could go in always, and it was the visa waiver. In fact, we just had to fill a form in and hand the form in. Obviously, it's become stricter, obviously, since 9/11.
That's the Easter, exactly. But with that, you can only stay 3 months, and that's obviously not enough for the through hike.
Yeah, so you got this visa. So America granted you this visa, and it was to last 10 years. And I know you already mentioned you met the guy who's now your boyfriend. By the way, what's his name? Unless you don't want to name him, that's fine.
His name is Ryan, or Popeye on the trail.
Right. Okay. Well, let's to refer to him as Popeye then. And so you met him, and you finished the PCT, and you knew you had a 6 months limit. So you must have been up against a deadline to get back. Did you overstay your visa once the hike was complete, or did you head back home to Germany?
So I had a stress fracture on the PCT, like after the Sierra, and that delayed everything a little bit. I was still eager to finish that hike, but I saw, okay, I'm probably not going to make it in the time I was allowed to stay there. So I filed for a visa extension.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that just in time, and I filled out an application and paid my fee, had to go to Seattle to get my fingerprints done and stuff.
Right.
And so I was able to stay for like a year in the country to make sure I can finish the PCT, and also maybe stay a little longer with my partner.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's what I did.
So let me get this right then. So you can do that. I didn't know you could do that, by the way. So you actually make an application, you go and be interviewed again and fingerprinted again, and then they granted you that. Is that reflected in your passport? Is there a stamp in your passport which gives you that extension of the visa?
It's not in the passport, but I got a new. It's called the I-94, which states your date of where you're supposed to exit the country, and I got that with a visa approval, which came after I left the country, by the way, because it takes quite a long time to get the process works, but you are legally allowed to stay in the country until the visa is either approved, the extension is either approved, denied, or whatever, actually for up to 240 days. which allowed me to stay until April, end of April.
23 that was, to April 23. Right.
Exactly. And I got the approval in May.
All right.
So after I already left.
All right. So did you go back to Germany with Ryan or with Popeye? Or did you manage a long distance relationship at that stage?
Yeah, we went for the long distance relationship. I went back to my life in Germany, and we had like a long distance relationship for a year where I was visiting him like 2 more times just for like a month to see him in the USA.
Sure.
And then we hiked the CDT together, started that in June last year.
And because you already had your 10-year visa, you didn't have to reapply for a visa. You were perfectly allowed to come into this country. And by the way, this is a hiking show. So tell us about your experience out there on the PCT. What was the trail giving you? Did you find that this was a different type of hike than the Tiara, or was this a similar sort of culture?
Yeah, the PCT was just really nice because it is a well-maintained trail, mostly. It is a very well-established hiking culture because the trail is existing for quite a long time. The TA is only exists since 2011.
Yeah.
So it's quite a different experience. I really recommend anyone who's looking for their first through hike going for the PCT because logistics are relatively easy. The trail itself is not like technical or whatever. And also the weather is mostly super nice. There was almost no rain the entire time. I mean, it's really true, like what they sing in the song, it never rains in Southern California.
But there's a couple of things, aren't there? There's snow often, and there's the desert as well. Did you cope well with both of those? And there's forest fires quite often.
Yeah, so snow is not a big issue for me. I live in Munich, close to the German Alps. I hike in the snow all the time, and I have my fair share of experiences with all that. So that was not such a big issue for me. Also, it was a very low snow year in 22, so we didn't really have to deal with sketchy stuff on PCT.
Right.
There was some snow on some high passes in the Sierra, but nothing crazy. And the desert was actually interesting because I never really hiked through a desert before, and people not really like very happy about the desert part on the PCT, but I went northbound, so I started in the desert, and I happened to love it. I didn't expect that, and
most people say they love it. Most people say they love it, by the way.
It was really lovely because I was just expecting that kind of like maybe boring, that the landscape doesn't have to offer that much, but the desert is surprisingly, there's a lot of variety in the flora and fauna. So I was enjoying myself from the very first day on. I was like, it was not my first hike, so had some experience and there were a lot of people for whom it was the first through hike, so they struggled for the first 2 weeks
I'm sure.
with the usual stuff, blisters and just general pain and taking ibuprofen every day. And I was just like, oh, I'm so glad I am able to enjoy this fully from the very first day on, because I was well trained as I go hike in the Alps all the time. So I was just a happy hiker. It was just really, really lovely for me.
Where did you get the name Ravenclaw, by the way?
So I got that on the PCT because the concept of trail names is not really existent outside of the USA.
I know. Yeah.
And the TA, people don't really do that or anywhere else. So I didn't have a trail name until then. And I met that other through hiker. She had a lot of Harry Potter tattoos all over her body. And I was asking her, like, if she's a Gryffindor because of her tattoos. And she said, yes, I'm a Gryffindor. What are you? I told her Ravenclaw just right away because that's who I am. I very much identify myself as a House Ravenclaw. And she was like, okay, I'm going to call you Ravenclaw from now on. And I was like, okay, that's pretty spot on. That's a good name. That describes me very well. It's also a great opener. Just for other people, like I tell them the story and I ask them, okay, what house are you in? So it is you get a sense of personality if you ask people for their Hogwarts houses.
Do you know? Hang on. Do you know what? I have no idea what you're talking about. I know you mentioned Harry Potter, so I now realise. So Ravenclaw is a house, and Gryffindor's another house. Okay, right now I've got
yes,
it.
there are four houses.
My listeners, a lot of my listeners, especially the younger ones, are rolling their eyes right now. So that's okay. So you've had nothing. In your experiences so far, you've had no problem, no issues at all with immigration. So we move on to this year. And I believe that you and Popeye were planning on the Arizona Trail. By the way, why not the Appalachian Trail to complete the Triple Crown, by the way? I mean...
Well, I don't want to say anything offensive. I'm just not super interested in the Appalachian Trail. I enjoy big views. I enjoy not too much rain. I had my fair share of that on the TA in New Zealand. And yeah, well, it didn't really speak to me. So
but hang on, let me tell you, there are plenty of views on the Appalachian Trail, but I can't get up. You're right. The rain is going to be there a lot. So that's the way it goes.
There might be views, but then there's clouds and you don't see the views.
One thing I promise you, by the way, if you were ever to come and do this and get above the clouds, that's the most amazing thing. Climbing mountains and looking down at clouds in the valley. It's a remarkable sight. Anyway, you were going to, I digress. You were going to do the Arizona Trail, but you were actually flying over to Miami. So why Miami? Was that was something to do with you wanted to see something or other in Florida?
Yeah. So the entire plan was my boyfriend, Popeye, he was with me the last 3 months in Germany after the CDT.
Right.
He went back home with me to Germany and he really liked it. So we were like, okay, let's try to get you here longer. He's only allowed to stay 3 months.
Sure.
In the Schengen area. So we were thinking, okay, now the time is up. We go back to the USA and get him a visa for Germany so he can stay longer. And in that time, hey, let's use our time wisely, hike the Arizona Trail. As I just said, I fell in love with desert hiking, so that sounded perfect. And it was like a childhood dream to see a NASA rocket launch.
Wow.
Which happens in Florida. And there's also a place called Crystal River where the manatees meet to breed in the winter, which is a great opportunity to swim with manatees because I'm trying to do that for a really long time now in different countries of the world, and it just I never found a manatee where they were supposed to be. So this is the best chance, and I always wanted to do that. And I was lucky with the scheduling because there was supposed to be a rocket launch 2 days after we were entering the country in Miami. I got tickets for it, and it also happened to be my birthday. So I was like, I'm gonna fulfill myself a childhood dream, and give myself a really nice birthday gift with seeing a rocket launch like as close as possible, and swim with some manatees, visit Everglades National Park, just have a really nice little road trip for like a week, then go over to the West Coast where my partner lives, and then go hike the Arizona Trail, and then get back together to Germany.
So had you, as far as you knew, had there been any changes to US immigration policy from what you understood when you set out from Germany? Because you still had the visa, which allowed you for a 10-year period to come over here for 6 months at a time. Were you advised of any changes in policy?
No, I was not. There are a lot of cases in the press right now, but they came like after.
Right.
So I wasn't aware that there might be any issues.
Right. So you flew over on February 24th, landed in Miami after an 11-hour flight. That's a long flight, by the way, isn't it? What was the first indication that you had that things might be a bit different?
Yeah. So I have to go in line to like talk to one of the agents where they usually do like some sort of interview, and it's all for people who don't have who are not passport holders of the USA
Sure.
or have a global entry, because they can go through the electronic control.
That's interesting. So if you had global entry, none of this would have happened, I presume. Is that right?
I'm not sure if they can still take you out if you go through electronic control and they not open the gate and tell you have to see an officer.
I would definitely get it next time, but we'll come to that. We'll come to that. Yeah, we'll come to that in a minute, actually. So you, and I know you, when we spoke before, you told me that you could see in the line ahead of you, one or two people were being pulled out of the line. By pulled out, you mean asked to come out of the line and go in a different direction. Did you start to get nervous at that stage?
Yeah, so it takes quite a while. It takes usually over an hour to get to the front of the line.
Yeah.
And I'm usually just like listening to music, whatever. But the closer I got, like I noticed that it takes way longer than usually.
Right.
I never traveled into Miami, so I don't know if it always was the case, but usually it is just a matter of minutes for each person. But this time it took way longer for everyone to get through all the questions. And that was already like kind of weird. And then I noticed that they like keep pulling people out, which I've never seen before happening. I'm sure it does happen, but I have never seen it on any of my entries through the USA. And there was in front of me, there was two young guys with German passports, and they were just like on their travel through. They only wanted to get on a plane to South America,
right.
And so they didn't want to stay. But they got pulled out, and I was like, okay, that's weird. They were directly in front of me, so I overheard their conversation, and I was like, okay, this. I did start to get nervous at that point, because like, okay, they didn't look like anyway suspicious or whatever. Why are they making such a big deal today out of everything? So
yeah. So you got to your turn in the front of the line, and I'm a US citizen now, but when I first came into the country, obviously I wasn't, and I've been coming to the country on and off for the last 35, 40 years. And always when you go up there, it's kind of nerve-wracking anyway, because they don't greet you with happy, smiling faces normally. You know, it's their job. You know, they're looking out for things. So from my memory, what I would do is hand over my British passport at the time, and they would look at me, and I had a visa when I worked in America as well. So they took your passport and looked at your passport. What happened next? What do they then do?
So they just asked the usual questions that I always get asked, which is how long you want to stay, what are your plans, and then what did you do on your other stays here? Do you know anyone here? Where do you know them from? Where's your hotel? Where are you going to stay?
Sure.
Do you have a return flight? What do you do for a job? All these kinds of questions. And that was nothing out of the ordinary. That was like the usual stuff. And I answered like I usually do. And then suddenly she told me to step aside, and somebody is going to take me to the back office.
Do you remember then what it was you said just before she asked you to step aside?
I'm not sure, no.
I wondered what it was that made her ask you to step aside. Anyway, so where were you actually taken then?
So after that, I got picked up by other offices to get accompanied to the back office, where there is like a waiting area with chairs and counters, and there were a lot of people in there already. And
most of them were, I presume, foreign-born people.
Yeah, there were the two guys I just mentioned that were just on their way to South America. There was an older couple from my flight too. There were some Italians. There was a very distressed girl from Spain. So as I noticed, mostly Europeans. And depending on which flight came there, I guess. Yeah. I came from Germany, but there's lots of flights coming in, so I don't know. But there was a bunch of people in there waiting.
Right. And then you met an interrogator, a woman interrogator. Tell us how that went.
So I got asked in a small room where I met an officer, and she interrogated me further. Like, it was mostly about how was I able to sustain myself on my previous visits to the US. I stayed quite a long time. Why did I stay so long? What did I do? She told me 6 months is like a long time. That would be only for emergencies. Although I told her my visa is allowing me to stay for 6 months. So I don't know what she was getting at this point. And then she started accusing me that I illegally worked there before, because that would be the only way that I could afford to stay that long there. I kept telling her that I never worked illegally, that I hiked the PCT and the CDT. She asked me if I have proof of that. I said yes, but she never wanted to see that proof. I also told her how much money I have and like how I'm sustaining myself with the money I have. I offered her to see my bank account and everything, but she refused. She didn't want to see anything, but she kept accusing me. She started raising her voice. She didn't let me finish my sentences. And I was just like, okay, I was confused what's going on, right? Because why would they accuse me of something like that? I'm a European citizen. There's no reason for me to illegally work in the USA, really not. And so I was just like, okay, at this point I was like, okay, it's all gonna work out somehow. It's just a mistake. I don't know. So I just tried to keep cool and just answer the questions the best I could. And but she kept threatening me that they're going to find out. And it's better if I tell now, because they're going to find out.
That they were going to find out. My gosh.
Yes.
Were you threatened? Were you actually threatened at the time?
No, because I didn't have anything to hide. I told her just calmly after she said that to me. I said, yeah, that's fine. There's nothing to find out. So, and at this point, I was sure it's all gonna like work out somehow, because they will realize that I didn't do anything like that. And yeah, and then I was let go back into the waiting room, and then I had to go with her pick up my luggage that I checked in. That was the last time I was able to see my boyfriend, just briefly. We were not allowed to talk, but I was seeing him because he was already sitting there. Like, he had already taken our bags out from the belt, and I was taken there so I can pick up my luggage, and so they can search it.
And you weren't allowed to speak with him at all?
No, I just took my bag, and then it was straight back to the waiting area.
You take your bags back, and I presume they basically chucked it all on the floor, did they, and checked everything. Do you know what they might be looking for?
I don't know. Any kind of proof that I'm not telling the truth, I guess.
And they never had any, though, did they? They never gave you any evidence that you've been doing anything illegally at all, did they? That's the kind of chilling part to me when I've read your statement and read the article about you in the Trek. There's never any point at which they tell you what you're supposed to have done wrong with any evidence at all. So You're then questioned by a second officer, and that officer claimed that you'd overstayed your visa in the past. Was that to do with the visa extension?
Yes, correct. So first, she also started asking me about how I sustain myself. I repeated everything, but then she went on the visa extension. She saw in her computer I had a visa extension. I told them about it, and she claimed that I overstayed, and that took a long time. It's now it was multiple interrogations by that lady. I got questions multiple times. I don't know how often, but in the end, it led to that I got informed that my visa is cancelled, and that I will get deported back to Germany.
So who is pronouncing sentence upon you? Are they pronouncing sentence effectively as officers of the country, or do they have to refer it to somebody more senior? Or do they have the latitude to actually say you're being deported?
Yes, so the border agents have that's been the case, I think, since 2001, that they have the full power over that. They can deny you entry for whatever reason, and they have the full power to do so. I don't have a right for a hearing or a lawyer or whatever. And that's been the case for a long time. That's not new.
How are you coping with all this, by the way? I mean, you say you're answering them calmly, but you now realise this was an issue, something happening. Were you getting stress? I mean, you must be getting stress. How are you coping with it?
Yeah. So I was tired. I was on an 11-hour flight. For me, in my time zone, it was 2 a.m. when it all happened. So for me, it was the middle of the night. I was just really exhausted. I really needed to go to the bathroom, really, really urgently. Actually, since I got out of the plane, I was just looking to go to the bathroom as fast as possible. I was extremely thirsty because I got really stressed because I realized that there was a way they were tweeting me, that they didn't let me finish my sentence, that they started raising their voices at me, that they didn't really want to see proof. I realized, okay, they don't want me here. They kind of want to get rid of me for whatever reason. And that I'm in some kind of trouble. And I was really stressed because I realized I might really not I might not be able to enter the country. And they probably going to turn me around. At this point, okay, I was still able to use my phone. I was allowed to make a quick phone call to my boyfriend, telling him that I will get deported, that they will not let me in. And I was also quickly doing some research on my phone when the next flight back to Germany would be. Of course, it's only possible to put you on the same airline you came from and the same place you came from.
Didn't know
and
that.
I asked them when they told me that they're going to deport me, when that would happen. They didn't let me know. So while I still was having my phone, I was quickly making the research so I would know how long I would be waiting, and that would turn out to be the next evening. That would be my flight back. So that was
is it your responsibility? Do you use your return ticket, or do you have to buy a new ticket, or do they pay for your ticket? What happens?
I had a return ticket.
Obviously.
With the same airline. So I'm not sure if they are rebooking it for me. But they are sending you. You don't have to pay. But it has to be the same airline and the same place where you came from.
That's probably what happened then. Yeah, it's probably what happened because you had a return ticket, I guess. And I believe you also deprived of your prescription medication for most of that time as well, weren't you?
Yeah, that happened later. So I was exhausted. I was stressed, but I tried to just keep it inside of me, because I knew it's not going to help me when I started crying here or breaking down. I was feeling like that. I was shaking, but I tried to really calm myself. I did some breathing exercises. I went to extensive therapy. So I have some really good coping strategies that I tried to utilize. I did some grounding techniques. I bought myself a bottle of water from that little vending machine. So I just tried my best to keep calm, also with researching when the next flight would be. That would help me to be okay, I'm gonna be out of here the next evening at least, and not knowing, because that's actually the worst part. That was the worst part about all this for me, that I just don't know what's happening. I don't know why I'm accused of these things, why they're making this hard for me. I just want to hike. I'm just a tourist. I don't know. And I don't know what's happening. I don't know why people are yelling at me. And when can I go home? Because when I realized that they're not going to let me in, that's all I wanted, basically. I just wanted to be back home and be okay again and be able to go to my bed and sleep and all that. So I was really, really stressed out, but I made sure to stay calm on the outside also, to just don't give them any control or power over me, or give them the sense that they can manipulate me or whatever. So I just try to cooperate and stay nice and friendly and calm. And so after they told me that they're gonna deport me and I had to sign some stuff and they asked me some more questions, I was taken into another room where they searched my luggage and me. So first they were searching my luggage. They were doing it in a kind of rough manner where they were tossing my stuff around, making comments about, because I had medication with me because I was planning to stay there for 5 months. So I had some more medication with me to take, and they made some comments like, oh, it looks like a hospital in here and stuff. And and then they searched me. I had actually the same hoodie on, but I was not allowed to take it because of these strings. So I had to take it off. I had to take my shoestrings out of my shoes, and I have to give away my glasses and and the phone. I was not able to use the phone for a while anymore. And in the beginning, they let me do it just texting with my boyfriend or whatever. But after a while, they
you know what, by the way, you know why they take away the strings, the laces, and because they think you're going to hang yourself for some reason,
I can't harm myself or the other people with me. So
which is bizarre.
Yeah. And part of the questions before were if I take any medications, and I told them my medications I'm taking daily. And I saw that means I'm gonna get provided with my medication, but that never happened.
Wow.
So I don't know why they needed the information.
So this happened late, or you were deported sometime late in the or early in the evening, I think it was, and you had another 24 hours effectively to wait. So where did they hold you?
So after they searched me and my luggage, they put me into a cell right there at the airport. They have apparently multiple units in the airport where they have multiple cells, and they put me in that cell together with the Spanish woman I saw in the beginning. And so they locked us in there. It was a jail. I mean, you can't tell it any different. There was just some plain concrete. There was an open toilet in the corner, and a sink, and then some how you say
mattress? Is there a mattress?
No, there was no mattresses, just a stone benches. Not
oh
benches.
My gosh, really? So there were no bed to sleep on. You just had to lie on a stone mattress.
Yeah, so there were some air pads in there, but there were not the air pads we were sleeping on as hikers. It was very cold in that room, extremely cold, and these little mattresses they had in there were not shielding from the cold from the ground. So it was really cold from the ground, and they took my hoodie away. But they allowed me to take I had a blanket that I took from the plane, from the Lufthansa airline, and they allowed me to take that little blanket, but it was a really thin blanket. But I was glad I had it, because there was only one blanket in there, and the Spanish woman had that blanket because I had my own. But so it was really, really cold, and we were both shaking because it was so cold. And I talked to her a little bit, and I found out that they accused her of the very same thing. that she would work there illegally, or she was there before too, and that she had worked there illegally before. They threatened her with the same things. She also needs medication. She has really strong anxiety, and she was like really on a breakdown. She was already been in there for 4 hours before they locked her in. She was really distressed. So I was just focusing on trying to. First, I was focusing to keep my calm and just be like trying to be cooperative. And then as soon as I was in the cell, I was focusing on helping her to regulate, because she was really, really distressed. I was distressed too, but more internally.
By the way, very Germanic. By the way, one of my ex-wives was part German as well. So that's a very solid and very keeping a lot of your emotions inside, which is probably a good thing for you, I suspect, because I'm sure if her stress level got worse and worse and worse, you could injure yourself, couldn't you, effectively, by having something. She could have had a heart attack. The stress she was probably going through. And Annika, when we were speaking before, which was just the other day, you said something to me that was, pretty chilling. You said that you wanted to go back to a country where I have rights. And before people say that you didn't have rights as a foreigner over here, because some people will think that, I'm afraid, you were conferred those rights by the valid visa that this country gave you. So you did have rights, and yet those rights were kind of taken away from you. How has your image of America changed since this experience last month? And more generally, do you have a sense of how we're seen over there by your fellow Europeans?
So the thing was, even if I did something wrong, which I didn't, I still should be treated as a human being. I should not get yelled at. I should not get locked up in a cell for doing nothing wrong. I should not freeze in a cell where I was not able to sleep because it was too cold in there. We were shaking in there for cold. Denied medication. The way I was treated was just, from my point of view, where I come from, that's not normal, and that shouldn't be the case. Even if I did something wrong, I should not be treated that way. And also, the Spanish woman that was with me was treated even worse. To be honest, she was put in handcuffs and stuff. So that's the first part I want to say. And I just was also that I am not allowed to do anything about it. You are not allowed a hearing. You're not allowed an attorney. And that's the case for a longer time, but usually they didn't do that to Europeans. They did do that since 2001 to a lot of other nations, but European tourists were never targeted before. And apparently now they are, because after I got back home, I followed up with the media and all the other cases, and there were a lot of different cases from Germans, from a British PCT hiker, from Canadians, from a lot of different tourists, that they're not only were deported, some of them were held for weeks in detention centers with the same kind of allegations about illegal work or something. So yeah, it kind of made a big impact, all of that, because a lot of my fellow Europeans are thinking, of course, is it worth the risk to go to the US? And the through hiking season is just about to start. For most of the trails in the US, and a lot of people from Europe are going there to hike the trails. It's not only Americans who hike these trails. And a lot of people are reconsidering and deciding not to go. And I think it's a very personal choice, and it seems to be certain. I followed with the media. It seems to be certain airports and certain borders, like the one from Mexico, that are where they're particularly strict now. So I haven't heard anything yet from the usual entry points from the city for the PCT, for San Diego or Los Angeles. And I think there's just some things that come off as red flags, like I don't have an employer at home. I'm self-employed. So
Sure,
that is a
sure,
red flag, apparently, because I don't have ties to a job that I want to
sure,
go
sure.
back to. Then that I want to stay there for longer than just a month. And that's another red flag, because why want to stay there for so long? All that kinds of like raises the alarm system from, oh, she wants to live there, she wants to work there, she wants to build a life here or whatever. And then I already stayed there a couple of times for a long time, and
Yeah,
that's another red flag. So if you're there for the first time on your ESTA or your visa, you never been in this country before, you don't have any I never had any legal problems in any way, and come to the right airport, and I think you have a return flight, you have an employee, better is you even have a house, you own a house, you are married in your country, so you can show all that you have ties that you do want to go back to. So I really don't want to fearmonger anything, but if you are in any kind of legal limbo, or you stayed there before for trails or longer time, it's just something to be aware of and to be prepared for, that they might question why are you keep coming back.
I was shocked when I read about it in the first place, and I almost didn't believe it, but I've read your statement now. I've obviously read the Trek thing. I saw some Facebook posts and so on, and people need to be aware of it, because it sounds like through hikers particularly fit into all those red flags, don't they? So that's because that's a sad reflection, I think, on what's going on over here. And you've all been, a number of you, been scooped up and treated pretty abominably by this country. And even though I'm an immigrant, I'm still a US citizen, and I personally would apologise to you for how you've been treated in this country. And I think it's sad, and I hope this gets better sometime in the future. Now, I know also both of us have been aware that you want to come back to America at some stage in the future. So you're kind of measured in how you say what you say about this, obviously. And I've been trying to be careful not to be too aggressive about it as well. I thank you for coming on and telling your story and sharing your story in a factual way, and a way in which people will understand the dangers out there. And if people are thinking of coming over here, they need to really, really think carefully about what they do and how they do it. So all I can say is thank you for coming on and sharing the story with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. All right. Well, hope to see you back in the country in about 5 years then. Okay. And I hope Popeye can come back. Will come back with you as well. All right.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye then. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
What did you think? It's actually worth reading what Annika wrote to me after I sent her our recording. She wrote, "I know that this is about the system, and I've experienced nothing but kindness and support by the US and Americans I personally met out on the trails, and that I hope to return one day after my 5-year ban is up." Now, that is classy and shows a lot of grace. To be honest with you, I think I was angrier than she was in our chat. And this doesn't seem to be getting any better. I've heard several more similar stories recently that speak to something seriously wrong with our current system when we're deporting friends and allies. It's just wrong, in my view, and I'd love to hear what you think, so please reach out if you can shine some light on this issue. I've included several links that Annika sent me, including a German post that was an article she wrote on things to watch out for when travelling to the US. Hikers fall into many of the categories that are red flags for our border agents, so if you're able to translate it from German, try reading it. Before we hear from Beth, let's thank our wonderful donors who keep this old boy putting these shows out weekly. This week and 2 days, our recurring donors are James Boyd, Small World IFT, Michael Gosh. Michael, you donated last week. You might want to check that out. Maybe you're over donating to me. But thank you anyway. Kevin Eastman, Ann Dobson, Mike DiCello, Dave Santi, Alan Troy, Jens Lipperheider, Brian Helton Jr., Lisa Rana, Woody Bass and Paul Chevelle. Thanks to you all. You make the difference. So, having heard of preparation, the time for walking is now here for Beth. And I caught up with her and Andrew, her stepson, at Woody Gap. Here they are with their first impressions of the trail. So, we're not only on with Beth, we've got the added bonus of Andrew now. Hey guys, how are you?
Very good.
Good.
So, you started on a couple of days ago. Was it yesterday? Day before yesterday?
Yesterday.
Oh, right.
Yep.
Okay. And it rained all day. Welcome to the Appalachian Trail.
It was so rainy. We were drenched.
So how did your gear cope with it? And what did you do to cope with weather? You know me, I can't cope with it at all. I'm useless at it.
I don't know. I had a raincoat, and we just our pants got wet, but
Yeah, just keep going. I had a really good raincoat too, and just put the hood up and put your head down and keep going.
So that was, you did, trying to remember, you did the approach trail or not?
no, we didn't do
Right.
the approach trail. We started
Okay.
at
Right. So your first day was actually hiking from the top. It's pretty cool to be at the top there and touch the side, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was really good.
And you got to Hawk Mountain Shelter, which I know is the first stop. It's about 8 miles, something like that. Where did you stay? Did you stay in the shelter or did you stay in tents?
Tense.
Oh.
It quit raining at about 5 o'clock. Yeah, something like that.
Right.
And then we put up our tents, kind of when it was still sprinkling. And there were already a lot of people in the shelter. So
Really?
yeah, there were probably about 20 people there last night.
Oh my gosh. So have you been seeing people all day long then today?
We've seen some people, not a ton.
Not too many. We I think we left before most of the people left. this morning.
Right. Okay. So first impressions of that first day, apart from the rain, what do you think of the train? I know you've already done it before, but it's for me, it was, even the second time, it was a bit of a shock to the system, I tell you.
I think it's just getting going on this adventure was the excitement, the
Yeah.
adrenaline finally, today's the day we're finally going. All right, let's go.
And according to Beth, Andrew, you don't pack until the last minute, a bit like me actually. So how did you work out your gear in the end?
Well, I just figure it out as you go, and then as you realize that you need something, then you can get it on the. You can have a shuttle running you into town to get whatever you need, or deal with it.
Have you had to do that yet?
No,
Not yet.
he needs a belt though.
I do need
already.
a belt.
It's funny
That's the
actually.
bad side.
The stuff you realise you need. But so are you? I'm not going to get too personal here because men tend to lose more weight than women. As Beth knows, women tend to turn into Amazonian goddesses. Men turn into the T-Rex with a huge lower body and the upper weenie, terrible state of your body. Are you a big guy, or what sort of weight are you?
I'm 6'3", about 190 pounds.
All right, so you don't want to lose too much anyway, do you?
Right, I'm thinking that.
If you do the same as me, you'll be 130 pounds at the end, which doesn't look good on anybody. So today you got to Woody Gap. How far was that? Is Woody Gap then?
It was like 12 miles or something.
Wow, that's quite a step up already, Beth. Don't overdo it too quickly.
Well,
It was her idea.
Of course it was.
but we're staying at Above the Clouds Hostel tonight.
Right. So are you actually there now?
No, we're still at Woody Gap. We just got here. But the good news today was this guy Chris about 4 miles ago at Gooch Gap
Yeah.
said, "I will take your packs for you."
Oh my
And
gosh.
he said, "That would be awesome."
Who's Chris then? Who is he?
Some guy.
Some guy just saw us on the trail and offered.
Well, let's hope he turns up with them then.
Yeah, no, he already turned up with them.
Oh, right. That's why it's a good day. It wouldn't have been a great day if he did not turn up with the packs, would it?
We were ready to get rid of him.
It's amazing, both as the person who gives out that trail magic, which is actually what it is, and also for the recipient as well. But we trust people with things the way we probably wouldn't do it in normal life,
Yeah.
don't we?
Yeah, that's very true.
And you felt quite
Very
comfortable
true.
giving it to him, did you?
I would have given my bag to anybody who asked for it.
You sound like sound like you might be struggling a bit more than Beth then, Andrew. So what was it like? What was it like for you physically?
My legs are a little sore. I should have trained a little bit better, but
But you don't mean that, do you? You don't mean a little bit better. You mean at all?
Yeah, right. I should have done something.
Oh dear. So what's the plan next few days? Where you're going to above the clouds?
I think that we're gonna slack pack to
Over
Neil Gap tomorrow.
Yeah.
Wow. So 3 days, getting there in 3 days. I mean, I could never have done that. So
Well, you know, the problem is there you need a beer canister from Jared to Neil Gap.
yes,
So
I know you do.
You know, so if we slack pack, if we have Janelle take our packs, my sister take our packs, then we'll be able to do it.
Of course, you've got a caddy with you in some way, haven't
Yes,
you?
we do, and we might as well use them.
How long are they going to be easing your way then, Beth?
Like about a week, another week and a half or something like that, I think.
Right.
And then they were at Woody Gap providing for a couple hours here. They've been providing food to people, so they've been doing trail magic.
So, what's the vibe so far out there?
I'm happy.
Yeah, me too.
So far, so good.
I mean, other people. You know, is there a lot? I mean, one thing I've noticed over the years, more and more women are coming on this trip than they used to, and certainly a lot of older people, my generation, are coming on. Have you found the similar sort of mix of people?
There was this guy last night. He said he section hiked this trail over 29 years, and this is his first time doing a through hike.
Wow!
And he was an older guy. And his pack is 50 pounds.
50 pounds. Oh, my gosh. And he's done
when
it before.
I first did it, mine was 43.
Oh, my God. That's crazy.
So what's the plan for tonight? You're staying there? You're going to go out somewhere, or are you going to eat at the hostel?
Well, my sister gave us mashed potatoes and chicken, so I'm eating that right now. I think pizza is also in our in the night's activities.
You haven't got the hiker hunger yet, and you won't get it. Well, I don't think you'll get it for a while, but you sound like you might have already a touch of it, Beth.
Well, I think so. I was pretty hungry.
Well, look, I appreciate you making the effort to stop and record, because I know it's not easy on the trail. Whenever you get a signal, you're just going to have to reach out to me and let me know.
Okay.
And I know it's great to hear you're going well. You got about, I said to Dave the other day, you're about 270 odd miles behind him. So
I know
you're going to start catching him. But he's only an eighth of the way there. 275 miles is an eighth of the way there.
Yeah, we're like 1%.
Oh, yeah. Well done, you. Good stuff. Well, look, great to hear from you. Great you're well. Nice to meet you, Andrew. And look after her. Or in fact, Beth, look after him, actually, I should say. All right. And we'll catch up soon, okay?
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers then. Bye.
Bye.
They seem pretty comfortable out there, don't they? I don't know, Andrew, but Beth is very much a take it in her stride kind of woman. And slack packing over Blood Mountain is absolutely the right way to go. They're easing themselves into it by having somebody to support them out there for the first week or so. I think that's a really smart move. And Andrew's already finding out that a little preparation can go a long, long way. I must admit, it's a lesson I've never learned either, Andrew, so we're both in good company. Now we've got Dave again, and he's putting in the miles. Here he is. So, Dave has reached Hot Springs, I believe. How are you, Dave?
Doing great. Yes, reached Hot Springs yesterday after about an 18, almost 19-mile push to get here.
You are really pushing these miles, you know. I mean, how is your leg now?
Oh, doing great. I mean, it's today my feet are sore, but I bought new insoles for my shoes because I use the Ultras and they're in good shape, but you can tell that the cushion is getting squashed. So I'm going to drag another 100 miles out of them or so, and then probably replace them in Damascus.
Yeah, well, it's one of the things that you get trouble with your feet all the way through. I changed my boots 3 times, so it is where it is, isn't it? Really. So tell me about Hot Springs then, because I came up there with 4 other people, listeners to the show. We tried to help them out earlier this year, but I know we didn't make a dent. How's it looking there?
Well, I think it's to a certain degree, it's probably not significantly improved from when you were here. It's both a heartening and beautiful place and thing to see, and a devastating one at the same time.
Sure.
I mean, that little strip of downtown where the river came over is still pretty much dead. They're trying. There's a a few stores or whatever restaurants that are trying to get pushed open soon, and some of the storefronts that are still just boarded up and are not going to be either never coming back or won't be, will be replaced by somebody
Sure.
new. So in fact, we spent last night camping at it's the resort, the spa they call it, but they got the campsites, which is right off the river. And so I walked down to the French Broad River. That's a great name.
Right, it is.
Yeah. And the amount of debris that you still see along the riverbanks, all along that shoreline, and you're looking at 100, 200 yards of what is clearly displaced sand, right? There's just sand coming way, way up into, part of the campground, a foot deep of sand that just clearly got pushed out of its place and they just deposited on this, on the land. So it's interesting, the wrong word. It's really, it's a startling and stark reminder of what had happened there.
Sure. And is the Smoky Mountain Diner still open? Because we use that for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We were trying to really help financially.
Exactly. Today is Sunday, and they are closed today.
All right.
So we desperately wanted to go for a Southern breakfast this morning. We're going tomorrow morning. So yes, they're open. There's a small brewery kind of place. They're open, and they had food trucks. So we'll be there again tonight. We're making do, and the town is doing fantastic. The regular services are available. The store, the Dollar General. I don't want any of your listeners to think this is a place not to go. The opposite is true. This is a wonderful place. This is a place of resiliency and hope, and the people are pushing themselves back into shape, and they want the people. It's why I chose to zero here today, was to give a tiny, tiny little bit back and spend a little bit of money here instead of someplace else. So it's
spend a lot of money.
I try. We're trying. I'm gonna have a few extra beers tonight just in case.
And you're over at Elmer's tonight. How is he? Is he still running the? He's not doing the food anymore, is he?
He is here. He is looking good. He's not running. So shall we say? There's another younger man who's clearly kind of dealing, with the people and all that. In fact, I'm in the room right now. This is it was beyond my understanding or expectation. I mean, you've been here. It's a wonderful, wonderful old building with classic Southern history to it, Civil War history where it was used as a hospital from both sides of the armies, used it as a hospital and a command center. But I was thinking I was coming to some sort of, hostel, and yet this is like a private room. It's beautiful.
Yeah. It's a beautiful old place. In fact, I stayed in the Earl Schaefer room. I think there were 3 of us in there when I was there. It's great. I love the place. Now, going back a bit, I know we spoke to you as you were getting out the Smokies. How's it gone since then?
It's very well. After I spoke to you, we the next morning I pulled out for a early morning hike to catch the sunrise at Mount Camerer. There's a lookout tower. It's a blue blaze, I know, and it was like 0.6, Steve. Off the trail, so a 1.2.
Way too much.
I know, yeah, but it was intentional as a sunrise thing. Got up to this tower before the sunrise, caught some spectacular pictures. The views from there are 360 degree, and it's kind of the last hurrah as you're coming out of the Smokies, because then you really start the descent. We made it down to Davenport Gap. And there was trail magic being set up. Fantastic.
Oh, nice.
Right. We got there fairly early since we had come out so early that morning. And so the people had arrived and were starting to set up. And so we got a little bit of coffee and donut kind of stuff, but they were going to grill hot dogs and hamburgers for lunch. But we were there maybe 10:30 a.m., 11 a.m. And then we spent that night in that vicinity. We chose not to go to Standing Bear. We went to the Discerning Hiker, a different hospital.
Yeah, tell me about that, because I'm going to interview him there.
I reminded him of that. He said, okay, whenever he calls, I'm ready. It's a more intimate place, shall we say. They only have 3 upstairs room opened with like 3 bunks, and a downstairs private room with like a queen bed.
Right.
And he's very hands-on. He cooked. He took us to town to dinner. He picked us up at the Pigeon River Bridge as you dropped out of the Smokies. You can see that's also a location where they had a big amount of damage. So there's a ton of construction work going on there. Took us back and forth from that location. Very comfortable. I mean, a hostel where the owners understand the needs of hikers and have them all available. All the little bits and things that you might need. A little light resupply if you want to grab a few things also.
Yeah.
But very well done. Very well done.
Now, last time we spoke, two of your small tramley were going on ahead. I believe maybe already gone ahead. Now you've now recruited somebody else into the tramley. How many of you are together now, and who's the new person?
I would say at the moment we are 3-person tramley strong with probably 6 or 7 in the orbit, shall we say?
Nice.
We're like at the same shelters. A bunch of them are in town today. So it's kind of interesting how you watch the ebb and the flow of the same people. And this younger guy that I hike down Blood Mountain with, I keep seeing him. He does 20-odd mile days, and yet here he is shopping in the Dollar General today when I was there. Because I think some of the younger folk tend to like push hard days, and then they take a day or two. It's kind of a ebb and flow for them. Like that's the second time I've used that expression, but for some of the younger people, they push hard, then they stop, and they play a little, and they push hard, and they stop.
Sure, that's nice. It's a nice mix.
Yeah. So we have the current family is this gal Ahoy and I who've been hiking together probably for several weeks right now.
Yeah.
And the new gal from Germany who's a federal prosecutor of like terrorists at the top federal prosecution level. Fascinating person to have along and listen to the story. So it's been fun.
I'm sure it has. I'm sure it's lovely there. So
yeah.
I know you went over Max Patch, which I love, and I'm looking at your pictures. You had a great weather for it as well. So,
perfect.
Did you hang out on the top there, or did you just keep going?
No. We stopped. It was perfect, like you'd say. We had fantastic weather. It's such an interesting spot to stop. I mean, you describe the bulbs and you hear about them, and sure enough. But more importantly, you can stand up there and look back at the Smokies. You can look back at where you've been and see
exactly
some of those places. You can project out over miles and miles and go, wow. I mean, it's hard to understand the scope and the scale of what you do. And then sometimes you stand back, look at the mountain and say, we were there 2 days ago and it took us 2 days to get here, whatever. It's just, and it was beautiful up there. There was some tourists, a family with a dog, and we were running around with the dog. I mean, literally, I was running with the dog on the top of Max Patch without my pack.
Funny if you talk about the view back. I remember that. I remember being up there, and I'm pretty sure that's where I started saying there's never been a mountain I couldn't get over. It's one of my because I looked at all those mountains I'd been over. We'd been over all those bloody mountains in the Smokies, and yet we got there. So it's funny.
Yeah.
You may be slightly dispirited. You think you're not making as much progress as you want to. All that sort of thing. You look back on the mountains you come up and over. That's an achievement already, isn't it?
Absolutely. You talked about getting dispirited, and it's hard sometimes to. You have to sort of compress your view. You think, we're going to do 8, 10, 12, whatever miles today, and there's so many miles. But it's, every day adds to the next, and pretty soon, we're 260, 270. It feels like it just started.
So what is your mileage is what now?
I think it's 275 right now.
Wow.
I think our next push is to Uncle Johnny's in Irwin, which I think is at 344, which we should be there by the end of the week. It's 70 odd miles in 5 days. If we average 15 a day, no problem. We're going to see the Cookie Lady tomorrow, apparently.
Oh, really? Is she down there?
Yeah.
I thought she was further north.
Yeah, somebody said, the Cookie Lady is down there. When you go there, okay, we'll see. I'll report back.
So your 275 miles is approximately 1/8 of the way there. That's right.
Don't do the math. Don't do the math.
How does that, when you look at it from that perspective, you've been out there now how long?
We're not quite 4 weeks. It'll be 4 weeks by Wednesday-ish, I would say.
And the fact is you've done 1/8 of it, and you've got the most difficult stuff obviously to come later. It's quite a daunting prospect, which is why one shouldn't look too far ahead, should you? You should see where we're going to resupply in the next 4 or 5 days, and that should be enough to be thinking about.
That's exactly it. Everything is, to me, every block is broken down mentally. Right now, it's Irwin. That's all. Nothing else. Right?
Yeah.
And maybe from Irwin, it might be Damascus. I don't know. But, if you don't do that, you're hopelessly.
And I tell you, I love the hike from Irwin to Damascus. It's a great, great area to hike in. I really enjoyed that thoroughly. And As far as the Irwin's concerned, I know they've now got a boat over the Nolichucky River, which should be pretty cool because you're going to have two of those in this trip. You'll be the first one ever to have two of those river trips. And you got Uncle Johnny's, which has been rebuilt. I understand. How many people can they accept? You know, so I thought it was only partly rebuilt.
You know, I don't know their completion status. Last time I actually checked on them was before I started the hike, but they were already accepting and available, saying we're taking people in already. So, I mean, you know, it'll be well over a month. I will take what they give. I mean, if they don't have room and they can't do it, then we'll move on. But I want to go there just to support them, and if I can, I will. And if I can't, then we'll find some other way.
And you now are in the area where there was impact, obviously, from Helene.
Oh, yeah.
Are you noticing it more and more on the trail, or has the trail been really recovered pretty well?
No, I have noticed almost no impact on the trail from Helene in that truest sense of the hand of God wiping down a bunch of trees. We're not there yet. We're seeing plenty of blowdowns. We're seeing some small swaths where you can see 20 or 30 trees knocked down, but nothing that's been like in the middle of the trail where they've had to cut a path through. Plenty of single blowdowns and plenty of blowdowns that I'm attributing to more recent storms, because you look at the kind of the age of the fall, the tree, what the leaves look like on it, you know, things like that. And very, very little of it, I would say, is Helene, especially because when I was monitoring some of these problems, most the Smokies were all cut through, shall we say, more or less. So if there had been falls, they were cut through, and here we are, you know, 4 or 5 months later, and if they're still across the path, even small trees, you know, maybe a 6-inch in diameter or whatever, that could be easily cut. So I can't attribute those to Helene because I assume they would have been cleared by now. So we're not seeing that yet. I know we're going to start pretty soon.
Sure. You still having a good time?
Fantastic. Every day is a new adventure, and to some degree, you know, like I love the Smokies, and we talked while I was in the Smokies, and I'm happy to be out of the Smokies because every day became a repeat of the last, because the scenery is beautiful but similar, and then every night was the shelters, which all were almost identical.
Yes, I know.
You know, and so it was sort of a very, I hate to call it repetitive because the whole trail is a certain degree of repetitive, but it felt like every day was the previous day. So,
interesting.
Whereas the last couple of days have been a little bit, you know, removed from that. We're kind of back to what I would consider almost a normal version of the trail, where, you know, it was at a shelter the night before last, but I tented. Then last night we had a campground in Hot Springs with a bunch of motorhomes and campers and whatever. We were tent camping. Tonight we're at Elmer's or Sunny Bank or whatever they call it, and then tomorrow we're off again. So I get excited by, I won't say variety, because I know that the days are going to, you know, continue to repeat themselves, but differences in nuances, right? Whereas the Smokies had almost no nuance difference day to day.
Yeah, I never found that, but I think you didn't stop in at Gatlinburg, and that really breaks up the Smokies. So perhaps that's why I feel differently to that, because I remember being excited about the prospect of going back to the Smokies for the second half. Both times it was bloody snowing as well. So and talking of which, how is the weather, by the way?
Oh, it's actually been pretty good. I would consider ourselves extremely fortunate with the weather we got in the Smokies. We had certainly the nights were cold, but cold into the maybe mid to low 30s. But we were there 5 nights, 6 days, and I don't think only 2 days were gray. A little overnight rain on
cool. 2
of the nights, but it had snowed and done a bunch before we entered in. In fact, that's one reason I chose the zero. At Fontana, we had 1 day of weather that looked bad, and I needed the zero anyway, so it worked out perfectly. A couple of days were, you know, it was sunny. I wouldn't call it warm, but it was.
It's still March. It's still March.
Exactly, and that's why I'm actually really pleased. Right? It was so fortunate, and we get a little bit of rain today. It's going to rain tomorrow, fairly steadily. So tomorrow's going to be a pretty wet day, shall we say? Yeah. Had to pack up my tent this morning wet, but you know, that's the trail. What are you going to do?
Yeah. Beth starts tomorrow, so you've got about a 275-mile head start. See if she catches you.
I'd welcome her if she can catch me. God bless her.
Yeah, because you guys are tearing along now, doing 18-mile days. This is a lot. You did 35 in the last 2 days.
That's correct.
That's quite a bit. It's quite a bit,
and a little longer because we ended up all the way at the end of town and way down to campsite. So I mean, the actual mileage for the day was even longer than the trail miles.
Yeah.
And then we had to walk back into town, walk out of town, back and forth, to get dinner and do all that kind of stuff. And then we walked all the way back to the other side of town today to get to Elmer's. So, but today's a zero. This is zero. It doesn't count. No, I'm excited for Beth. I hope her trip goes great. And it wasn't a competitive challenge for her to catch me.
I know.
Oh,
dear. All right, Dave. Well, look, good to hear you well. You still sound, and I'm particularly pleased that your leg's well, because these things can just stick with you, and they could really slow you down. So I'm glad you're feeling better, and I'm sure you're constantly checking it out anyway, aren't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm always, it's not 100%. It's like 90%, but it's just like we talked about. Everything rolls around. Sometimes this is hurting, and today my feet are sore, and tomorrow it'll be something else. And as long as it keeps moving, okay, fine.
Right. So in the other 7/8 of your hike, which you've got to do, you're going to get some of that. So look, good to catch up, and we'll catch up again soon. All right.
All right. Thank you very much, Steve.
See you, buddy. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Dave always talks with so much enthusiasm, doesn't he? I think he's truly living his best life out there and having a right old adventure. It's funny that he felt that way about the Smokies, though. And the more I think about it, it could very well be that he went straight through. He's got plenty of variety to come, so I'm sure he'll enjoy that. But it's true that it can seem tedious almost to some people. I don't think I ever felt that way, but maybe I did. Hence the expression, embrace the suck, because it really does suck out there from time to time. You just have to push on through. I noticed a post of Dave's today on Facebook where he tells his followers that he's decided to drop writing in the trek. It just goes to show that the hike alone is going to take so much of your time, and having this show to report on, his Facebook posts and the trek, turned out to be too much. I get it. Podcasting on trail, while it may seem fairly straightforward, eats up a lot of your downtime when you should be relaxing. I'm glad he's part of our class of 2022. I really enjoyed catching up with Beth and Dave as they head north. Normally, we'd go to a reading, but that's over for the time being. I've loved reading these books for you all over the years, but that section was the least popular when I polled listeners last year. And in an attempt to try to streamline the show a little bit, that had to go. So, with an apology again as I go, I'll see you all next week.